that. We welcome in Dr. Carey Wright, Superintendent of Mississippi Department of Education, Pete Smith, Chief Communications and Government Relations of the Mississippi Department of Education. Guys, good morning. How are you?
Good.
Good morning, Paul.
It's good to have you. We're going to miss not being in the studio with you, but it's kind of weird. But Pete, I did get and I've been trying to tweet that out, and for some reason it will not let me tweet it in the form that we have.
Well, we can figure it out and get it into a format that you can tweet. Yeah.
What we're talking about is a map that he sent me in just a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. The Mississippi National Leadership of Literacy. Provided direct literacy policy and implementation support for 20 years. It's a map of the entire United States of America, and Mississippi kind of stands out on that one, Pete. Yeah. Before we get to Dr. Carey Wright, tell me a little bit of what that is.
Yeah, basically, so, after Mississippi started its literacy reform about 6 or so years ago, and with the results on the National Assessment of Education Progress, the NAEP test, which is the only test that measures states every other year, Mississippi has become a leader in fourth grade reading and eighth grade math, and so states have reached out to Mississippi to ask us what are we doing to get the results that we're getting, and that map that I sent you depicts the number of states that we have either been to speak directly to their legislature and their governor's office, or we have had Zoom calls or whatever. So that's 20 states that have reached out, and we've got more on deck. We just finished the state. I don't know if Utah is on there yet, but we just talked to Utah a couple of days ago. So
Utah is on there.
Okay, great.
Good.
Utah, Tennessee, Ohio. What's the asterisk for Ohio? They didn't take our advice, or what?
I don't know what that asterisk is. Maybe it may be in a limited capacity.
Yeah, I started to say.
Tennessee, Ohio, North Dakota, South Dakota, North Carolina, New Mexico, Missouri, Massachusetts. Would you believe maybe it was the people, MIT? They couldn't figure this out.
Actually, Dr. Wright and I flew up to Massachusetts to
Connecticut.
To talk to them.
You have to credit them inviting people with some people with southern accents here going up to Massachusetts and giving them instructions. Louisiana, Kentucky, Idaho, Georgia, Colorado, Delaware, Connecticut, California, Alaska, Alabama, and Arizona, the people who've reached out to our state to see what we are doing. Why, Dr. Wright, why is that difficult for them to understand this?
Well, I think there's been different strategies that people have been trying. And when we started this process after the Literacy-Based Promotion Act and the Early Learning Collaborative Act were passed in 2013, we took on a very strong stance about teaching the science of reading, that there is a science to teaching reading. And we've trained all of our teachers and our administrators in that, and they've been implementing that in the classroom, and that's caused all of our scores to continue to rise. And as you know, when we started this out, Mississippi was at the bottom. We were literally 50th in the nation for our progress, and now, we have moved up to 35. So people are saying, what are you doing? Help us out. And so we're more than willing to do that. And so we've done some, like Pete said, on Zoom and some in person.
Nothing comes without controversy as far as change is concerned. And I remember back when we were talking about this, when this is, and forgive me, it sounds a little bit like CRT and some things like that, but it was very racist for the Republican governor at that particular time, Phil Bryant, and the domination of Republicans in the House and Senate to do this, because all it was trying to do was cut some kids out and get rid of some kids. And we had all kinds of things going on like that, but ultimately those are the ones who have benefited.
All children have benefited, and I think that's the power of the methodology that we're using. In fact, when the NAEP scores came out in 2019, they took a look at the states that had done well. We were the only state in the nation that showed growth in 3 of the 4 areas that were tested. And when they took a look internally, they found that all of our children, not just the top 90%, the top, quartile, if you will, at 75 and above, but all of our children showed growth. In fact, our children in poverty outperformed all of their peers nationally. Our children that were African American and Hispanic outperformed their peers nationally. So what we're doing works for all kids, not just some kids.
I do wonder, because we've had 3 surveys that we've done, or 3 not polls, but research, and we had another one this morning that's saying, and I know this is not your expertise for the most part, but I'd like for you to speak to it, because each district makes the decision as far as masks for these kids. Am I right?
Correct.
Does not come from the Department of Health or the Department of Education.
No.
But there's more and more evidence out there that very young kids are having speech problems because of the mask. And I don't know if you've seen this. Pete, have you seen that story?
I have not seen that story.
They have the development, certainly at a young age, because of the mask. They need to see what people are seeing, number one, and the clarity of that. And I think it went up, and I think I'm right about this. I believe it was like 364% increase in speech pathologists seeing very young kids now.
Well, it would make sense to me, because it is very important for children to be able to see your mouth as you are talking. I mean, I've got a 2.5-year-old grandson, and I know that he pays very close attention, when he's looking right at you when you're speaking. And the teachers also noticed the difficulty, even through Zoom, though, to be honest with you, with our little ones in teaching reading, because they could not be right there in front of the teacher and seeing her face.
Well, as a veteran teacher, I got to ask you, how's this going to play out as far as comprehension, so those kids get into, first, second, third, fourth grade?
Well, that's the reason that we also test children as soon as they come into school, whether it's pre-K or K, or 1, 2, and 3, actually, because the Literacy-Based Promotion Act has us testing children with a screener as soon as they come in. And that's the one thing that I can tell you that I think the teachers have done a really good job at, is catching kids early that need that early intervention, and then making sure that they get it.
I think one of the other things is catching kids, getting their eyes tested is certainly now more than ever before, because there was another survey that research I read as far as the number of kids who are going to be wearing glasses now is going to be double or triple because of iPads and everything else.
Well, actually, we passed out some advice very early on, actually, to all the districts around what they call as blue glasses, because they are an inexpensive way, if you're looking at a screen, whether you're a teacher or a student, that shields the eyes from that. And I think at the time when we passed that information out, you could get them as cheap as $5. But if you wanted, I guess, more designer blue glasses, they were going to cost you a little bit more than that. But that is a piece of information we did give the districts.
Yeah.
Can they be worked into prescription glasses, or just are they just?
Absolutely. Yeah. They sure can.
I own a pair as well, Paul. With my prescription glasses, it's actually called blue tint.
Blue tint.
There you put blue tint on the lenses, and it helps while you're looking at a computer screen or a phone screen all day.
Well, most of us, like me, have got three in front of me here, so
exactly.
maybe
you might
need
want
to try
that out.
All right. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but the legislature is in session now, and will be through April, or at least into May, 1st of April.
Yep.
Let's talk about the bills, first of all, that you guys are concerned about or pushing through, and where we should have the parents and the people of Mississippi take notice of what's going through. Pete or Dr. Wright, either one.
Sure. So just from the department standpoint, and of course, Paul, each year there are hundreds and hundreds of education bills that are introduced. More than half or whatever do not make it. But just from our standpoint, we're trying to do things around reform with our teacher licensure. We're trying to do something with our alternate route certification. We've been working with leadership in the House and Senate to broaden that, to get more potential teachers into the classroom to help with our teacher shortage. And then we've got a textbook law on the books that we're revising because our textbook depository closed in Mississippi, and so we're trying to figure out a way to help make sure that we continue to get textbooks to our rural communities and our non-public accredited schools.
We'll continue to talk about that. As a matter of fact, any that you want to highlight for me when my next guest comes on, or a couple of guests later, Senator Dennis DeBar. So I'm looking at the Education Committee here in the House, HB 14, all the way through, and I'm still scrolling. Are you kidding me?
I told you.
Are you serious? HB 1417.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot.
More coming up in just a little. All right, let me get back to the interview at hand here. Dr. Carey Wright, who's Superintendent of Education, Pete Smith, Chief Communications and Government Relations, and we were talking about the bills going through, and I was looking during the break here, was looking at the Senate, and I think the Senate's got like 50, 60, or 70 bills too, so there are a lot, and as you said, less than half are going to make it through the process, thank goodness, because a lot of them are... well, I think they just do it because somebody says, we need this, so earn your money, go out there and post a bill. But let's talk about the ones that beside the one that you just mentioned, are there others out there that we really need to concentrate on for the sole purpose of making our educational system better than it is today by the time we get to the end of this session?
Absolutely, and I'll let Dr. Wright talk about it because the things that we are proposing to expand, which are the things that we are doing well.
Yeah, and I think that's a really key piece. It's not, and Paul, you brought up a really, really good point. You can't legislate education to get better. It's the strategies that we have employed that we continue to ask for additional funding. We talk about return on investment all the time, and if you look at our early childhood programs, they have done an unbelievable job. In fact, Mississippi is only one of 6 states in the nation that's recognized nationally for meeting all of the quality indicators for pre-K. So we've asked for more money for that. We've asked for to continue to provide our professional development. That has been something that has been a huge strategy of ours. Additional money for coaches. Coaching has been a big strategy of ours. We now have coaches that work with teachers in literacy, special education, school improvement. We're getting ready to hire these math coaches and also our digital learning coaches for working with teachers. And the other thing that we've done with our ESSER money, the federal money, is that we have expanded our teacher residency program. We know we have a teacher shortage, and our teacher residency program has been very successful. We got the initial seed money from the Kellogg Foundation, and then when that money ran out, we then pivoted to our our ESSER funds, and so we're going to be bringing on through this program, this teacher residency program, a lot more teachers from Mississippi. So we're really focusing on the strategies that we find that have gotten us where we are and want to continue to propel us into the future.
Is there any buzz from the teachers out there that you guys have been able to gather in about what's going to go? I mean, you find yourself, any employer would, no matter what the career is, find themselves in an enviable position to have two entities fighting over how much money to give them in raises. So
right.
teachers have the House and Senate fighting on how much the raise is going to be, and that's an enviable position to be in. But I said this over last couple of days that by the time you put that raise in there, with the steps up that you can take as far as additional training, certainly once you get into teaching through 3, 4, 5 years and beyond, the cost of living in the state of Mississippi and some of the other, if we do the personal income tax, that's going to be incredible.
Absolutely.
The cutting groceries. Can you see some of the teachers who maybe said, I'm calling it quits, to come back into the profession?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's going to be a huge incentive because we will, our starting pay will be the highest in the southern region. And then once you start adding the steps onto it and the increases that are going to be coming, regardless of which plan that you're looking at, I think you're going to see a lot more people wanting to come to Mississippi. You said the cost of living is very low, and they're well supported here in terms of professional development and the resources that they have. So I do believe that teachers will reconsider that.
Do you think what the decisions that our governor's made, which have been contested by some people as far as the mask mandates, the closing mandates, the quarantines, and things such as that, it certainly has kept our businesses open, and we see that in $1 billion plus as far as our tax revenues are concerned. But it also is probably helped us out as far as schools are concerned, too. Not to be crazy about this, but not to push these mandates when they're not needed. How do we stand as far as the other parts of the country are concerned, with the damage done from COVID in the learning sphere?
Well, we definitely took a hit. There's no question about it. But the good news from last spring, there were a couple of pieces that I want to emphasize. Number one, we tested 97% of the children that should have been tested in the spring, and I don't think there's a state in the United States that had a testing participation rate that high. In fact, there were some states that were in the single digits in terms of the number of kids that they got tested. So that was we were able then to get an idea then of how our children were doing statewide. We did take a hit. We dropped about 6.5 points from 2019 in literacy and about 11.5 points in mathematics. And I honestly believe that the hit could have been larger had we not had all of these good strategies in place and all of the teachers out there doing their level best to make sure that our kids are learning through the pandemic.
You guys have got a lot of money from the federal government and elsewhere, from the lottery and everything else. I mean, a lot of money. I'm not sure if what vault it's being kept in, and I'm saying that sarcastically, but a report to the people of this state as the head of the Department of Education. Where is it? Where is it going? Sure. Are you satisfied with where we are now?
So there were 3 buckets of money that came in. I'm just going to call them ESSER 1, 2, and 3. And the first bucket has to be obligated by September of this year, 2022. The second bucket has to be obligated by September of 2023. And the third bucket has to be obligated by September 2024.
Let's talk about bucket number 1, since that one,
that's about, we've reimbursed about 80% of the money already to the districts who are spending that. It's a wide variety. I presented that actually to the Senate at the Senate hearing that I was at a couple of weeks ago. And it's everything from, upgrading HVAC systems to tutoring to hiring mental health therapists to providing additional resources for teachers. It's everything that we knew that we could give them in terms of guidance around ways to spend that money. And then now when we've told them spend that money first because it expires first, and then move on to the next bucket and then the third bucket. We've used our money that we've held back for high-quality digital content for free for districts and teachers to use, and all they had to do was opt in, and then they got high-quality content in English language arts, math, social studies, and science. We've also done the same thing with high-dosage tutoring. So now children and districts can take advantage of tutoring either in school or out of school in all subject areas. And we've done the same thing. I just mentioned our teacher residency program. That was $9.5 million so that we could get more teachers hired. We've expanded our call center, which has always been a problem for us, and not having enough people to answer the phone. So we've hired an additional 20 people on contract for our call center. So we're very cautious about how we're spending the money, but we're also very thoughtful in terms of the guidance that we're giving the district so that we make sure that they're spending it on allowable expenses.
Yeah. None of that went to hiring more teachers, though, right?
No, we did not encourage that because there's a funding cliff, and that's the problem when you are hiring full-time teachers. Now, if they did that, if they did that with this money, they're going to have to be prepared then to pick up those dollars in another way when that money expires.
Can't you say the same thing about, because did we buy laptop computers for most of the students in the state with that money?
Yes.
How long are those computers going to last?
So the laptop computers that was a different infrastructure money that came into the state, and we took that $200 million and used was a Mississippi Connects initiative to purchase a device for every teacher and student. That was to last over a 3-year period of time. And,
how much were we talking about there?
Well, that's going to, Pete, do you want to pick up on that? Because you've been working with them on that.
That initiative, the Digital Mississippi Connects initiative, spent about $150 million on the digital devices, and then the legislature threw in another $50 million to help expand broadband. And so those computers are set to expire in 3 to 4 years.
So then it's going to be up to us as taxpayers to replace those?
Yeah, so the districts now, with the money that they have and and all of their ESSER accounts, and we're looking at a bill now in the legislature, Paul. It's called the Digital Refresh Bill. Basically, it would allow the department to do everything that we did back 2 years ago with the Mississippi Connects bill, except for the school districts will be obligated to pay for their own devices this time.
You guys are going to have to learn how to come in at 7:05 because we just don't have enough time for this. We've got so many other questions. Final segment is coming up with Dr. Carey Wright and Pete Smith when we return right after this. Last segment here with Dr. Wright and also Pete Smith. There were a couple of things from the bagpiper Matthew in Hattiesburg. Don't teach CRT or Zinn, Z-I-N-N. I'm not sure what Zinn is, or S-E-L. We know we've heard about that. Your comments on, Dr. Wright, on the legislation as far as CRT is concerned.
Well, let me speak first about something that I think needs to be addressed, and that is I'm not really sure everybody understands the APA process for when these things get put out. There was nothing quietly done about the revision of these standards. This was done at a board meeting, an open meeting, and the APA process begins with us saying, here's the changes we want to make, and it's got to go out for public comment anywhere from 30 to 45 days. Then all that comment comes back in. We take a look at it, and we decide which of we convene people, typically teachers, together to look at the comments and say, okay, what are your recommendations? And then those recommendations go to the board again in another public meeting. And if the changes are substantive, then it's got to go back out for APA for another 30 to 45 days for additional comments after.
APA stands for?
The
Administrative
Procedures Act.
That's the law. That's the
law
that provides for the. No, that's a state law that provides for the public comment period.
Was the controversy over the timing of this, or as much as the language?
Well, it just happened to land at the December meeting, but the board has an open meeting every single month of the year, and so as I've said before, we don't take a look at the month that it's coming because it's a public meeting and it's put out for the public to know, and that's the reason the APA process is so powerful because now anyone in the state on anything that we put out for APA can comment on it. And then all those comments are brought back in. The board sees every single comment. We put them in a chart form, and then we let them know what we're changing and why we're changing it, or what we're not changing and why we're not changing it. And all of that is discussed at public meetings. There's nothing that's done behind closed doors.
What is the SEL that a lot of people have talked to me about, and they're concerned because it's CRT packaged in another name or acronyms?
No, that's not true. It's social emotional learning, and I can tell you from this pandemic, I have heard loud and clear from teachers, from parents, and from students the amount of mental anguish and stress that the pandemic has caused, and this just gives children the ability, the skills that they learn, the standards that are there. The board approved it in January of 2021. They're on our website, and it's really teaching children how to get along, how to regulate their behavior. I mean, all the things that you would want good citizens to do. There's nothing in our social emotional.
Well, I understand. Let me say this in limited time too. Sure. I could see where that could be abused easily by a teacher who doesn't understand the parameters. And I think that's going to be up to, as I've often said, parents to be more involved in their local district and their schools. And they've got to keep control of that.
Absolutely. So. I could not agree with you more. And that's one thing that we've said. If you find something that you, as a parent, that you don't think is being appropriately taught, go to your local school first and give the school an opportunity to respond, and then go to your local school board.
We also had a story, I think it was in Hernando, about a survey that was apparently, they said was federal survey as far as gender, sexuality, et cetera, et cetera. Are there forms that are mandated that we schools must fill out that the schools don't see or that you don't see?
I'm not familiar with that form that you're talking about, or the survey that you're talking about, and I think it's strange that it would have come from the federal government to just one district or one section of a district. That's not even the entire district. So I need to know a little bit more about that before I could comment on that.
Paul, can I interject one more time about the social emotional learning? So back in 2019, there was a House bill that passed, I think it was 1283, that actually was the genesis for the department to develop social emotional standards.
That's true.
So it was a bill that was passed by the legislature that then we took by law to create standards to help our kids in this time.
We mentioned that Senator Dennis DeBar, I'm not sure if it's his bill. There is a bill in the Senate to decrease, not to decrease, but to have the superintendent of education salary dropped to $250,000. Would that affect you if that bill passed?
No, I don't believe so. I think it's for whenever the next state superintendent would be in my stead.
Yep.
And is that authored by Dennis DeBar, or do you know?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Well, maybe you guys can meet in the green room on the way out there.
Well, I got to tell you that we are very sorry that you're not here, because we also miss all of our conversations in between when we're not on mic.
Absolutely, and that's worth its weight in gold sometimes. So, I do appreciate that and look forward to being able to get back in the studio as soon as possible. Anything else? We got a few seconds left here, and only a few seconds.
No, just to know that talk about assessments. The NAEP assessment is being administered right now, and this will be the first time since 2019, and so we're going to be anxious to see how well our teachers are doing and our students are doing, and I know they're doing a good job.
I did have a story yesterday, day before, about the new SATs are going to be all digital.
Yes, yes.
And it's more important, and I mentioned it then, more important than ever to get that broadband, because somebody in Tutwiler to Hot Coffee, Mississippi will need that in schools there. Guys, thank you so very much.
Welcome.
I appreciate it.
Thank